Inside the quiet farewell that brought Prichard Colón's family together this week, there was a stillness that finally settled after nearly 11 years of holding on to hope. On August 13, 2026, the boxing world learned that the once unbeaten Puerto Rican fighter had passed away at the age of 33, closing a chapter that began not with an ending, but with a single night that changed the course of his entire life. For years, his parents had shared quiet updates from that same bedroom where they had cared for him day after day, and fans around the world had followed along, holding on to the smallest signs of hope, wondering if the young man who once seemed destined for greatness might someday open his eyes and truly come back to them. Now, that long and painful wait has reached its final chapter, and the world is left to sit with the weight of everything his family endured and everything Prichard represented long before that fateful night ever happened. To understand the depth of this loss, you have to go back to who Prichard Colón was before everything changed. He wasn't just another fighter chasing a dream. He was one of the most electrifying young prospects boxing had seen in years, a junior middleweight with lightning hands and a record that seemed almost unreal: 16 wins, 0 losses, 13 of those victories coming by knockout. Before he ever turned professional, he had already claimed 5 national amateur titles and a Youth Pan American gold medal, accomplishments that had scouts and analysts whispering his name as a future world champion. His father, Richard Colón, wasn't simply a proud parent cheering from ringside. He was also his trainer, the man who had shaped his son's skills since childhood, the two of them bound together by the same dream, the same discipline, the same relentless pursuit of greatness. Together, they had built something extraordinary, and by the fall of 2015, it felt like Prichard was standing on the edge of everything he had worked for. Then came October 17, 2015, a night that was supposed to be another step forward, but instead became the moment that quietly ended everything. Inside Eagle Bank Arena in Fairfax, Virginia, Prichard stepped into the ring for a super welterweight bout against Terrel Williams, a fight that on paper looked like just another chapter in his unstoppable rise. But somewhere in those rounds, something started to go terribly wrong. Colón began complaining of dizziness, later alleging that Williams had repeatedly struck him with illegal blows to the back of his head, the kind of hits strictly banned in boxing because of how dangerous they can be to a fighter's brain. As his condition worsened in real time, his corner made an agonizing decision, choosing to remove his gloves and stop the fight altogether, a moment that led officials to award the bout to Williams by disqualification in the 9th round. In that instant, nobody in that arena could have possibly understood the full weight of what had just happened, or how permanent the damage already was. What followed in the hours after the fight was nothing short of a nightmare for the Colón family. Prichard's condition deteriorated with terrifying speed, and what had started as dizziness spiraled into a life-threatening medical emergency. Doctors discovered a severe brain injury, and in an effort to protect whatever function could still be saved, Prichard was placed into a medically induced coma. What followed next tested his family in ways few people could ever imagine. Days stretched into weeks, weeks stretched into months. The coma continued for an almost unbearable 221 days, nearly 8 months of uncertainty, fear, and unanswered questions for 2 parents who had no way of knowing whether their son would ever open his eyes again. And if he did, what kind of life would be waiting for him on the other side of that silence? When Prichard finally did wake up, the outcome was nothing like the recovery so many had prayed for. He could not walk. He could not speak. The brain injury had left him requiring constant, round-the-clock care, a reality that would define the rest of his life and the lives of everyone around him. His mother, Nieves Meléndez, stepped fully into the role of his full-time caregiver, dedicating her days entirely to tending to her son in the very room that had once held his boxing trophies and dreams of championship gold. She spoke in the years that followed about how completely her life had reshaped itself around his needs, explaining that everything she did now revolved around keeping him comfortable, cared for, and surrounded by love. His father, once the man preparing him for battle in the ring, became something quieter and gentler outside of it, at times seen carefully taking him for slow walks, a haunting image of a former trainer now guiding his son through the smallest, most human moments instead of championship rounds. For years, the family made the difficult choice to share pieces of their journey publicly, allowing a devoted community of supporters, fellow fighters, and strangers who had never met Prichard to follow along and send prayers through every stage of his long and uncertain road. There were moments that brought fragile hope, small signs of response that his family and followers clung to, desperate for any indication that the fighter they loved was still present somewhere beneath the surface of his stillness. Alongside the emotional toll, the Colón family also pursued legal action tied to the events of that night, seeking accountability from those connected to the fight that had irreversibly altered their son's life. But no legal outcome, no settlement, and no acknowledgement from anyone could undo what had already happened inside that ring. And as year after year passed, the reality of Prichard's condition remained largely unchanged, a permanent and painful reminder of just how quickly everything can be taken away in a sport built on both glory and risk. Then, on August 13, 2026, the news that so many had quietly feared for over a decade finally arrived. Richard Colón took to social media himself to share the devastating update, telling the countless people who had followed his son's journey that he regretted having to inform them of Prichard's passing, adding that his son was now, in his own words, in a better place. He expressed deep gratitude for the years of love, prayers, and support that had carried the family through their darkest and most uncertain moments, asking those following along to continue keeping them close in thought as they faced this final, heartbreaking chapter together. A specific cause of death has not been publicly disclosed, and out of respect for the family's privacy, many details surrounding his final days remain closely held. As the news spread across the boxing community, tributes began pouring in from organizations, former opponents, fellow fighters, and fans who had followed Prichard's story, not simply because of the tragedy that unfolded that October night, but because of the extraordinary devotion his family showed in every single year that followed. For so many, his story became something far bigger than a cautionary tale about the dangers of the sport. It became a powerful testament to what unconditional love and sacrifice can truly look like when a family refuses to let go of someone they love, even when the odds feel impossible and the road ahead offers no guarantees. Now, as loved ones gather to say their final goodbye to a man they still called their warrior, the image that remains isn't only of the undefeated young fighter with limitless potential ahead of him. It's the image of two parents who showed unwavering strength every single day for more than a decade, caring for their son long after the cameras stopped rolling, long after the crowds fell silent, and long after the rest of the world had moved on to other headlines. Prichard Colón's story stands as a somber reminder of just how thin the line can be between triumph and tragedy inside the world of boxing, and of how one single night, one single fight, can alter the entire trajectory of a life that once seemed unstoppable. As tributes continue to pour in from every corner of the sport, one truth remains unmistakably clear. Behind every fighter who steps into the ring, there is often a family standing just outside the ropes, ready to catch them no matter what comes next. For Prichard Colón, that family never let go, not for a single day, not through 221 days of silence, not through 11 years of uncertainty, and not until the very final moment they were forced to say goodbye to their warrior.